What makes living in Korea interesting? With Life Abroad on TBS EFM.
Issue Today is where we bring you our latest daily news bites to highlight interesting stories and keep you up to date on the latest news in Korea. And for that, I'm joined by reporter Angela Jong. Good morning, Angela.
Good morning.
Thank you for coming on the show. That question that I asked just before the break there, it's a long and a difficult one. Would you like to recap it for our audience in Korean?
Okay, sure. So, 잠시 후 Health Insider에서는 정신질환과 신체 건강의 연관성에 대해 알아보고 효율적인 건강관리의 노하우에 대해 배워볼 텐데요. 여기서 첫 번째 퀴즈 드립니다. 이것은 기존의 어떤 질병 때문에 생기는 또 다른 질환을 일컫는 말로 원병을 치료하지 않고 방치한 경우나 면역력이 약해졌을 때 발생하기 쉽다고 하죠. 두 가지 이상의 질환을 일컫는 이 명칭은 무엇일까요? Is the question of today.
Okay, and it's a complicated question even in Korean as well as in English.
Yes.
So we're looking for a specific word referring to a secondary health issue or problem that develops from an existing health issue or problem if it's not treated properly or if it doesn't heal by itself.
Yeah.
Okay, so, the government has just announced this decision on the extension of the current social distancing level. Give us the update on where we are with social distancing. What can we do? What can't we do? And how long will this continue for?
Sure. So the government just announced to extend the social distancing measures for 2 more weeks until February 20th. So under the existing measures, private gatherings are allowed only up to 6 people, and businesses must close their operations at 9 p.m. So the daily number of new cases was 20,270 on the last day of the holiday. And even after the holiday, the number still remained in the 20,000 range for 2 consecutive days. So there are concerns that the virus will spread further since a large portion of the nation's population traveled during the Lunar New Year holidays.
Yes, and that's very high numbers, of course, over 20,000. Gosh, I remember when 200 a day was high drama in Korea.
That's right. So the Prime Minister Kim said the speed at which the virus spreads is higher than expected and that this month, February, will be a critical period when an actual number of confirmed cases will be reported considering the virus has a latent period.
Yes, and disinfection measures are highly important, but there are also concerns over continued financial difficulties of small and medium-sized businesses, especially small restaurants, for example, due to the prolonged pandemic and countermeasures. Hopefully that day will come soon when we have a fight with an end in sight.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Now, let's talk about internet. Well, the government has continued network safety mandates so that a lot of people, of course, using the internet every day to watch streaming things and to, of course, play Wordle, for example. To an extent, we can't even imagine a day without the internet network service. And that means, of course, the important thing there is seamless network services without breakages or stoppages.
Right. So the Ministry of Science and ICT announced it will designate today 5 companies, including Google, Netflix, Meta, which was formerly Facebook, Naver, and Kakao, as companies required to provide seamless, stable network services to their users for this year, 2022. Since 2020, the government has designated companies subject to network safety requirements every year, according to Telecommunications Business Act of Korea, also known as Netflix Act. Designations are finalized considering certain conditions. So based on the data from the recent 3 months, a daily number of service users must exceed 1 million and the domestic traffic volume must be over 1% of the total traffic volume. So for this year, the both mentioned 5 companies have met the conditions to be mandated service providers.
So I'm curious, what was the government's intention behind establishing this Network Safety Requirement Act, or in other words, or AKA the Netflix Act?
So the government enforced the Telecommunication Business Act stipulating network safety policy back in December of 2020 after it found that global IT businesses, including Netflix and Facebook, generated a tremendously large amount of traffic but didn't take responsibility to maintain the quality of Korea's network. So this act was made to impose minimum responsibilities on them. So if designated, the companies must take necessary measures to secure means for stable services and handle requests by users.
And have the companies changed or improved their practices since the enforcement of the act?
Yes, so according to an official from the ministry, designated Korean and global companies have taken measures actively to expand their service capacities and add Korean instructions.
Now, some of these designated companies are not Korean companies, so I'm just wondering how the government is able to check whether they abide by this safety network mandate, especially if they don't have branches located in Korea.
Right. So for companies that do not have Korean branches, they're required to designate a domestic representative who will take care of the safety-related issues under the Korean law. So Transcosmos Korea will represent Google, and Privacy Agency Korea will act for Meta. And for Netflix Services Korea, its domestic branch will perform user safety tasks.
Okay, that's interesting. I never heard of Transcosmos Korea, but I was pretty sure that Google had a Korean office. I'm surprised to hear that they've designated another company as their local agent. That's interesting. Mm-hmm. What happens after the government finalizes this designation process?
So the Ministry of Science and ICT already sent designation results to 5 companies. The ministry will also recommend that non-designated value-added companies should follow guidelines to ensure service safety so they can provide a stable network to their users. And examples of necessary safety measures are contained in the guideline.
Now, at this point in time, many people must be aware that online job interviews have become the norm for a lot of job seekers since the outbreak of the pandemic 2 years ago. And I hear that there's a new service, or a recently new service, that has become very popular in recent years.
Yes, that's right. So Seoul City has put in place a business suit rental service named Dress Free, or 취업 날개 in Korean, for young job seekers. So basically, job seekers can rent a business suit for 4 days for free for their job interviews, and this suit package includes a tie, belt, and even dress shoes. A user can use this rental service up to 10 times a year.
Wow, that does sound like a really useful service for job seekers who can't afford to buy a business suit but have to dress up for job interviews. Mm-hmm. For those who might not be familiar with this service, can you tell us a bit more about it?
Sure. So Seoul City launched this business suit rental service back in 2016 with the aim of taking financial burden off the job seekers who have hard time finding a job. And last year, amid the pandemic, the service drew the biggest number of users. So the number of users was 4,032 people back in 2016, but it increased nearly tenfold to 40,000 users last year. The number of users increased by 26% compared to a year earlier. So overall, more than 160,000 job seekers have benefited from this service so far for the past 6 years as the service went viral and gained popularity among the job seekers.
Okay, that is a lot of people, 160,000 job seekers. How many branches or offices has Seoul City got for this service?
So Seoul City currently runs 7 branches for its rental service, but it plans to expand the number to 10 within this year based on the growing demand and in order to enhance the accessibility and convenience of the users. The new branches are going to open in areas such as Chungjeongro, Cheongdam, and Hongdae, where demands from the youth are concentrated. The existing 7 branches resumed the service in January to meet the demands, and the new 3 branches will be in operation from February 4th.
And who's eligible for this service? Are there conditions that have to be met?
Yes, so anyone who lives in Seoul and aged between 19 and 39 can use this service, including high schoolers who are about to graduate from high school.
Well, I must say, as somebody who's well over 40, it's unfortunate that they stop at 39 there. Still, I hope this service will be of good help to lots more young job seekers as they're out there looking for a start in their professional life. Thanks for the updates, Angela.
Thank
you. And
we'll
see you back on the show next time.
Yeah, see you.